What's going on, airsofters of the internet? Airsoft Parts been back with another video. Today got something a little unique. I picked up a Gate EON complete gearbox at a swap meet recently. Got it for a smoking deal. But one thing I did notice is that when there's not that many videos about the complete gearbox itself, there's mostly videos about just the shell that you would use for a build. I went ahead and took it apart a little bit. I removed the warranty sticker, and there's a warranty sticker for the spring guide as well. It might be hard to see on camera because I got a light and the gearbox is really shiny. But I just wanted to do a quick little video going over what the internals look like and what the shimming might be and how you might apply this to a gun that you're looking to buy a complete gearbox just to swap it in. So I took the spring guide out. Spring guide, it's got a CNC'd aluminum head with ball bearings and a steel like shaft. Pretty well built, pretty standard for an upgraded gearbox. Now just going over the externals. So I found a listing for this on evic.com. It's around $460, which for a complete gearbox with pretty decent parts as advertised, with a CNC'd shell and the most newest advanced gate MOSFET on there. Not too bad, especially pre-built. You just got to drop in. Now, there are some things you got to worry about when it comes to pre-built versus OEM. I'm going to cover that using this gearbox and another gearbox in a future video. Right now, just going to go over internals and what I think about upgraded pre-built gearboxes. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove. Oh, well, first of all, let's talk about the externals. So externals, they got laser engraving. Obviously they got like the AOE port, so you can check to see how the sector gear is engaging with the piston. They have a pinion gear port, so you can right here. So when you put a motor in, you can see how the pinion gear is engaging with the bevel gear. It's got this like really nice Delrin selector plate. It's molded, so it might have some porous entities to it, but it feels pretty solid so far. Let's see here. It's got J-cage bearings, which is very nice. It's got little tracks or little rulers on the side of the gearbox right here to indicate the precocking. So you got low, mid, high precocking. Basically, precocking is the MOSFET sending a small amount of voltage to the motor so that the piston can wind back and be ready to fire, so that when you pull the trigger, it just releases the piston rather than doing a full wind and release. So that's a good precocking indicator. Let's see what else. Obviously got the sector spur bevel placements and just basic read the manual, obviously. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up. I already took out all the screws, just got to do one more. All right, this is the inside of the gearbox. Let me go ahead and remove the anti-reversal latch. Now, I did not mess with the shimming at all, so that's one thing I'm going to test as well. Now, we'll start off simple. We'll test the compression. We'll take this off. So the parts being used here looks like this is some sort of it's hard to tell the piston. Definitely for sure a Gate manufactured piston head. I think this is one of their CNC'd units here. It's got an AOE spacer so that it's AOE corrected. This almost feels like a retro arms piston, based on the feel of the plastic and the way the metal rack is manufactured. This seems to be retro arms or some retro arms knockoff that Gate might be doing, but overall It looks pretty nice. It feels pretty good. It's got good, nice weight to it, so you might get a little bit of jewel creeping. We'll put that to the side. One thing I did notice is that on the EVIC advertisements, they're using just a plain cylinder, but this one's actually a max model cylinder, so you get some quality with that. I'm not sure if that's like an update. You got the Gate cylinder head. Looks like they just copied Lonex or use Lonex equivalent. Let me see if I can fill inside. It's got flat, like a sorbo pad that's flat, so it doesn't really have like the mushroom style where it wants like a piston head to fit into a certain slot. But overall, this is a really nice CNC'd cylinder head. It reminds me heavily of Lonex. I like using Lonex a lot. I do like when manufacturers make the post holes that where this centers into the gearbox elongated, because sometimes I feel that when you do swap these out, the holes that aren't elongated have a hard time slotting in, and you either have to you have to elongate them yourself, but having them already elongated makes it nice and easy for it just to slot right in, have no type of tolerance issues. It is really hard to take this out by hand, which is nice because that means there's no compression leaks or no type of loose air seals. Probably double O-ringed. Now moving to the tappet plate. The tappet plate, based on just the manufacturing grooves, it looks to be CNC from some type of Delrin. Yeah, here we go. Gate EON series. Professional parts. It says that right here. And it's got the Gate logo right here. But yeah, so tappet plate, CNC'd for sure. Air nozzle. Put this to the side. Air nozzle. It's hard to tell. It does have an O-ring. I don't know if the camera can pick it up from there. There is an O-ring in there. So it does have an O-ring. One thing I do like about CNC Delrin tappet plates is that the 90-degree angle on this is like perfect, so that when it's sitting in the gearbox, the air nozzle is perfectly flush with the front face of the gearbox. I see a lot of times like SHS or APS or Matrix where this is either bent a little bit back or it's bent a little forward, and you have an issue where the air nozzle is either tilted too far up or it's tilted too far down, and you get things like feeding issues, or your nozzle just blows itself apart, or you get excessive wear on the outside. That's why sometimes if you take your upper receiver off and you look at the front of your nozzle, it'll be like worn at the bottom or worn at the top or maybe on the sides, and that's just because the tappet plate isn't perfectly flush with the front face of the gearbox, and it's scraping on the inside of the hop-up unit. But I do like these CNC'd Delrin tappet plates. Gate has a good one, this one right here, and Retro Arms makes probably the best one that I like to use. So we'll set this aside for now. All right, we'll test the compression on it. Okay, so there's like 0 compression on this, so that could be a small problem. I think that they need to use a Viton O-ring and not some not over the counter, but like some basic Airsoft O-ring. They need to use a good Viton O-ring, and it looks like they put silicone grease. Personally, I like using silicone oil. I like using grease on, metal to metal friction parts, but when it comes to seals, I like using the oil because it actually creates like a suction. So that could be a problem if you're trying to if you have some FPS inconsistencies and stuff when you drop this gearbox in. But overall, the quality, the other quality of the parts are really nice. One thing I would change is I would change this to a Viton O-ring. So we'll put this to the side, and we'll focus on the gears and the MOSFET. The MOSFET is a Titan 2, which is basically like their newest Gate Titan. It's got Bluetooth features and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. It's got this extra dongle. I think this is for HPA stuff. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll just go ahead and remove that and set it to the side. take the trigger out. Oh, let's go over the trigger. So this is a gate trigger. This is similar to like a Max Model or Retro Arms, where it has a set screw right here in the back so that it could adjust the length of pull, and then it has a set screw right here in the front. I don't know if I can get that. There you go. So it has a set screw right here in the rear, which basically adjusts how far the trigger sits forward. And then it has a set screw right here in the middle, which basically adjusts the length of pull. So if you screw this all the way in, the less you're going to have to pull. The one thing about this is you have to program it with the trigger sensitivity on the MOSFET, because if you don't, you're going to have an issue where the trigger is going to be in the light sensor of the MOSFET. So when you plug a battery in, the MOSFET's not going to work because it thinks that the trigger is being pulled as the battery is being plugged in, and that's going to throw error codes. So you're definitely, if you do tune this at all, you're definitely going to want to plug this in or connect it Bluetooth to your phone, and adjust the trigger sensitivity based on the adjustments on the set screw. So we'll set this aside. This is a cool feature. Not many companies include this type of customizability when it comes to aftermarket things, because honestly a lot of aftermarket companies don't really trust end users to make tunes on their own, because then they'll make a tune that won't work and they'll blame it on the product rather than blame it on user error. So this is nice. I'll put this to the side. Let's see. We'll take this out for now. Take these two out for now. Not changing any of the shimming. I'm going to remove this screw. So let me grab a little screwdriver. All right. So with the MOSFET removed, we'll go ahead and touch on the gears a little bit. I do like that they're using J-cage bearings. J-cage bearings are like some of my favorite. I'll go ahead and put these gears back in. I believe these are SolLink 13-to-1s. Nice. I think they might be using different gears because on the EVIC advertisement, these two are steel, but this is not a complete like CNC piece. The way you can see the sector gear is it's got these two screws, and it's essentially holding this bottom gear onto this top part that pulls the piston. So it looks like, based on the old images of the listing, they're using a top piece that's molded and it's pressed on to this bottom steel piece. Now, SolLink is actually a really good gear company. They have crazy helical stuff that I'm gonna try out and use in future videos. But I'm actually pretty excited that they come with this. It does come with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth removed on the release side, so it's probably going to get lower FPS on this just because there's lowering the compression, but you are going to get a snappier trigger. So we'll put this gear back. Haven't touched the shimming at all, so we'll try the shimming out. I'll just put the 3 screws that kind of torque the gears in. Just fill it a little bit. A lot of times you can tell good shimming based on not necessarily how smooth the gears rotate, but you can just get a good feel of, you know, how they're rotating. You can get them, you can feel it in your fingers, whether or not it's like rough, or when you're spinning them, if there's a hard spot, or some type of spot that kind of catches and prevents them from smoothly rotating. So initially, the sector gear is a little loose when it comes to play up and down. A lot of people just hold it in one place and spin it, and they're like, oh, that sounds great. But if you actually do it the other way and spin it, sometimes you'll find issues. Overall, would I recommend a complete upgraded gearbox like this? No. Here's why. There's a lot of factors you have to factor in when it comes to installing a gearbox like this. Some factors you have to include are how does the shimming come out of the box? Another factor is compression. We tested compression. Compression wasn't that great, so that's something you're going to have to open up, redo if you're not getting the FPS that's advertised. Another big thing that I always tell people is you have to factor in the motor to gear engagement. Now, when you buy a complete gearbox, they're shimming it, but they're not shimming it to the motor that the end user is going to be using. They're just shimming it to where it's going to run smooth and it's going to have no type of hiccups or anything while operating. You know, it would be nice to know what Gate is using as like a control motor to be able to tell like, okay, this motor, this brand, this model is going to work very good with this gearbox. But when you factor that in, that's an additional cost. Same thing when it comes to the gearbox meshing with the hop-up unit. If you're going to drop this into a bone stock SEMA Platinum, is it going to mesh very well and feed and get the FPS and compression seal that you want by just directly installing the stock hop-up unit? Or are you going to have to buy the Gate specific hop-up unit for it to get the best results? Personally, I think that buying an upgraded complete gearbox is really good for users who want to have a true from the ground up build, but don't want to worry about the headache of internals. So what I mean by that is, you know, they're going to buy the specifically marked receiver, they're going to buy the specific rail, barrel, stock, buffer tube, and they're going to throw the fanciest gearbox they can inside of it, fanciest motor, fanciest hop-up unit, and they're going to expect it or hopefully get it to work or at least have someone tune it, a professional tech tune it. I think that for the amount you're paying, this thing's around $460. You can copy the internals for about half the price and pay a tech to do the installation. Now, the one thing I didn't factor in was the gearbox itself when it came to choosing alternatives for half the cost. The reason I didn't is because CNC gearboxes, you really don't need them. In my opinion, I think if you radius and just do a proper installation of the stock parts, you can use any stock gearbox. That is if it's metal, of course. CNC really only offers two things, in my opinion. If you're doing a crazy high stress build, you know, using a M150 or 160 spring or higher, then yeah, I would use a CNC gearbox. DSG builds specifically, I would recommend using a CNC gearbox. But I've seen DSG builds use stock gearboxes that were tuned correctly and proper radiusing and just making sure the gearboxes can handle that high stress. They last thousands and thousands of rounds. Another thing that I would recommend if you're trying to look into is saving weight. Now, airsoft guns, they're not that heavy, but let's say, for example, I have a Tokyo Marui recoil shock. It's got the buffer weight, it's got the recoil weights, it's got everything. I did swap in a CNC gearbox, not only to handle the higher stress of the recoil system, but also to lower the weight when it came to playing at long hour milsim games. So those are two factors. If you're looking into saving weight and you're looking into super high stress builds, then I would say CNC gearbox is the way to go. But you can achieve anything else using the stock gearbox if it's metal. I'll put a picture of the parts that I would recommend as an alternative to buying a $460 gearbox. I think right now I'm looking at the parts list. It's about $235 from evic.com. I'll put a link of all the parts down in the description as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little overview of the Gate gearbox. It probably wasn't quick thinking about it now. I haven't seen anybody completely take apart one of the gearboxes that come complete. I've just seen people use the gearbox shell and then use other parts to install in the shell. So hopefully this can scratch a lot of people. Hopefully people aren't scratching their heads anymore when it comes to whether or not to get this. This is just my opinion as well. A lot of people might have other factors into why they want to use this, but from working in the airsoft industry for a while, those are the big ones when it came to people trying to figure out whether or not they should buy a complete upgrade gearbox or just upgrade the gun they got. And I hope this helps anybody out in the future. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.